Hi, everybody. It had been a hard and difficult and sometimes confusing time for the true crime community over the last few weeks. And talk about frustrating. I think these past 2 weeks had been the most frustrating in a long time. Summer Wells's father is out of jail. Her mother appears to be back at 110 Ben Hill Road and going to the store and a church fete and just living her life again. Her mother looks the same, still sloppy, still dressed like a gangster teen. So I do not think there had been any lessons learned or any regrets. And in the meantime, that little girl is still missing, and everyone but YouTube has gone silent. Then, as you all will know, there had been some development in the Michael Vaughn case. A woman, Sarah Wanderer, had been arrested and charged with failure to report a death pertaining to little Michael Monkey Vaughn. Her husband, Stacy Wanderer, whom she says was responsible for little Michael's death, had been in jail since May on unrelated charges. Law enforcement is currently digging up the Wanderer's yard looking for Michael's remains and or evidence. They have also now obtained a warrant to search the inside of the house. I watched Michael's mother cry and plead with people to give them and police the time to deal with it all. My heart broke for her, although I thought that perhaps the father may have been a little negligent or perhaps a little complacent. But who of us haven't had such moments? After having seen the couple on a video and during a police presser soon after the little tyke's disappearance, I did, however, immediately feel that neither parent had anything to do with the little boy's disappearance. Their body language and their stories never varied, unlike that of the parents of Summer Wells. When law enforcement said that Michael's disappearance was likely an abduction, it brought a glimmer of hope that he may still be alive. But with the information and the actions of the police and investigators this past week, that hope has now, of course, been destroyed or at least diminished. And the family will now, of course, have to prepare themselves to be informed that evidence had been found to indicate Michael's death. The Fruitland police haven't given any proper feedback in about 3 to 5 days, so of course we do not know whether they have indeed found anything yet. But it is possible that they have, but are giving the family time to gather their strength. We don't know. But judging by how Fruitland handled the case thus far, I'm positive that we will get the information when Fruitland PD is ready to share it. Sarah Ann Wanderer will appear in court again this coming week. As yet, we have no indication how Michael died or even whether Sarah Wanderer is speaking the truth, as she has already told two different stories. First saying her husband was responsible, and then saying that he did not do it, but that somebody called Adrian did, and that her husband only disposed of the body. Who Adrian is, or whether he even exists, we don't know. Of course, there are currently more questions than answers, but because it appears that we are so close to a conclusion in this case, I'm not going to speculate, but instead I'm prepared to wait until answers come from law enforcement. There had also not been any news with regards to the disappearance of 20-month-old Quinton Simon, and as far as I know, police are still searching for his body at the landfill. His mother, Leilani, who is the prime suspect, is however still free, and so far we have not heard a single word more from law enforcement. My attention was, however, captured by the murder of 4 students in Moscow, Idaho, as I'm sure it also caught the attention of many other true crime fanatics. I find this a very strange scenario, as I'm sure many others do. As is my nature, I try to look at it from different angles. The 4 deceased are Madison Mogan, Kaylee Concalves, Ethan Chapin, and his girlfriend Zana Knodel. Something which creates the first mystery. Madison and Kaylee were at a bar that night. After leaving the bar, they went to a food wagon or grub truck where they ordered food. According to law enforcement's timeline, the 2 girls got home at approximately 1:45 a.m. The other couple, Ethan Chapin and his girlfriend Sana Knodel, according to law enforcement, also arrived home at approximately 1:45 from a sorority party a short distance away. Now, if I look at the timeline, it appears that they left the party a couple of hours earlier. As of date, we don't know where they had been or what they did between leaving the party and getting home. Now, how law enforcement knows exactly how late they got home, I don't know. I watched the video of the 2 girls at the food wagon, and I'm guessing law enforcement used that to more or less determine what time they got home, assuming that they went straight home from there. But how they know what time Ethan and Zana got home, I don't know. Maybe traffic cameras, or maybe they also assume knowing what time they left the party, and maybe they do know where they went after and before getting home. We don't know, and they are obviously not sharing all their information. However, knowing that the 2 girls and Ethan and Zana were not at the same place or the same party before the murders raises the question that if it was a targeted attack, who then was the target? The 2 girls or Ethan and Zana? There is nothing to indicate that something happened which made all 4 of them the target. It is thus my guess that 2 of the 4 were the targets, or at least one, and the others were collateral damage. Now, Ethan did not live at that house, so if he was the target, it means that whoever attacked them knew that he intended staying overnight. The other alternative is that the perpetrator did not expect to find him there, but instead expected to find only the girls there. We have now heard that all 4 of the students died due to each receiving multiple stab wounds. We now heard from law enforcement that the 4 students were likely asleep when they were attacked. Some, however, had defensive wounds and some didn't. From interviews, it appears that Zana Knodel did indeed have defensive wounds, which leads me, or one, to think that she woke up while Ethan was being attacked. I also learned that the 4 victims were on different floors, 2 on the second floor and 2 on the third floor. So that may explain some things. Let's say the 2 girls were on the second floor and Ethan and Zana on the third floor. It makes sense that the one girl was attacked in her sleep, and while that was happening, the second one woke up, and therefore the second person on the same floor would have defensive wounds. I think the same happened on the second floor as well as on the third floor. According to an estimated diagram, it appears that Ethan and Zana were on the second floor. However, that is just a guess, as law enforcement refused to answer that question when it was asked. It is my guess, though, that Ethan was likely attacked first because he is bigger, stronger, and posed a bigger risk, so had to be eliminated first. So it is likely that Zana did indeed wake up during the process and therefore fought back and therefore had defensive wounds. The other odd thing is that in cases of mass killings, the murder weapon is usually a firearm. When a knife is used, it is usually a weapon of opportunity. A burglar may be cornered and he grabs the nearest or most convenient weapon, a poker, a baseball bat, or then a knife. The other reason why a knife may be used is because the perpetrator cannot afford to buy a firearm or cannot obtain one because he offended before and has a criminal record, or it is someone with an obsession for knives. A knife is also easier to conceal. I think if the knife came from the house, law enforcement would have known it by now. So I think the perpetrator brought it with him, which means that he either could not get a firearm because he couldn't afford one, or committed a crime he was caught for, or he is someone who collects knives. Looking at the layout of the house, one can see why it is possible that the remaining and surviving two housemates on the ground floor, or then others call it the basement, may not have heard anything, and why they may not have been even aware of what happened upstairs until much later on Sunday. At first, the fact that they allegedly did not hear anything and only became aware of something being wrong later in the day on Sunday did not make sense to me. But as more details emerged, that becomes more probable, as they were indeed also out that night until about 1 a.m., obviously had a few drinks themselves, and thus slept late the following morning. Although the police have not released the details or the circumstances under which an incident was called into 911, I glean from social media that at some point between 11 and 12 on Sunday morning, one of the surviving girls on the first floor, basement floor, did notice something wrong and phoned a friend to come over. The friend then called it into 911. However, this friend only reported that someone was unconscious, but when police and medics arrived, they found the devastating scene. Since the murders, the police had a look at the footage of Madison and Kaylee at the food truck. On the footage, it appears they arrived with a young man wearing a hoodie. It also appeared that they got a lift home from a private person. I do not know whether hoodie guy and the person who gave them a lift home is the one and same person, but according to law enforcement, they or he had been cleared of any wrongdoing. It had now also emerged that Kaylee tried numerous times to call her ex-boyfriend. As a matter of fact, she called him 6 times between 2:26 a.m. and 2:44 a.m. From 2:44 a.m. until 2:55, Madison calls the boyfriend Jack about 3 times, and at 2:52, Kaylee calls him for the last time. Now, I'm going to venture a guess here, and it's absolutely speculation and my guess. Kaylee and Jack broke up but remained in contact as, according to her sister, they continued to share custody of the dog. I'm speculating that the dog, a white Maltese poodle, was the reason why Kaylee and Maddie tried so frantically to call Jack. I am guessing that they could not find the dog and thought that maybe Jack had come around to collect the dog while they were out, or perhaps hoping that he did. According to Kaylee's family, Jack missed the calls because he was asleep. This could be slightly suspicious because I would wake up if my phone is on a nightstand next to me at night. However, I do not even always hear my phone when I am awake during daytime, if it is in my bag or in another room. Because I also share a home with others, my phone is seldom at its loudest. I also often forget to charge it, or if I decide to sleep in, I may even turn the sound off. However, according to law enforcement, Jack had also provisionally been cleared. To get back to the dog, we do not know where the dog was found, but the dog was not in the house when law enforcement arrived. The dog was not harmed either, which leads me to believe that whoever committed the crime had let the dog out earlier. But how much earlier? Had he been around to the house before the girls got back home, let the dog out, and was laying in wait for them to return and to go to bed? According to law enforcement, the murders were committed between 3 and 4 a.m., which provides us with yet another mystery. Or perhaps we can also say that it narrows the timeline down a little. Because if Kaylee and Maddie called Jack for the last time at 2:52 a.m., they could not have been asleep, or at least not in a deep sleep at 3 a.m. And therefore, we can assume that the murders took place closer to 4 a.m. So, although law enforcement has released very few of their findings, and it may be a while before forensic evidence will provide more clues, I think we have indeed learned a few things which are more probable than others. Firstly, the killer is likely male, as statistics show that males are more likely to commit knife crimes. Because he managed to dispose of 4 people in such a brutal manner, he is likely rather fit and likely under the age of 35. And I would even go so far as to say he was 30 or younger. Between 20 and 30 would be my guess. Because of the type of weapon used, he is either ex-military or a hunter, or interested, maybe even obsessed with the military or hunting. I may be wrong, but as there is no indication of a burglary and no sexual assault, I actually think that the probability is higher that the criminal was familiar or somewhat familiar with one or all of the victims, and that it was a targeted attack, just like Ali said. It is also my opinion that the criminal was familiar with the layout of the house. Maybe a fellow student, a maintenance man, a colleague, but it could also be someone who regularly passed the house, a garbage truck driver, or even a delivery man. Being students, I'm sure they ordered pizza from time to time. I agree with law enforcement that the most likely point of entry would be the glass sliding door on the second level. One, because the front door is fitted with a keypad type of lock, and secondly, because the door faces the row of trees at the back of the house, and therefore the intruder would not be spotted from the road entering the house. I would also guess that he left the same way and escaped through those trees. I do think it is likely that the perpetrator may have injured himself during the attack, but because of the type of knife used, it does not necessarily mean that he cut himself. The knife, which they suspect was used, or the type of knife, is fitted with quite a significant gullion or guard to prevent a hand from slipping. It may not look or feel like it to family and friends and others involved, but I think and feel that this horrendous crime will be solved relatively soon due to the brutality of the crime, the area in which it was committed, the victimology. I would be very surprised if the killer did not leave something behind or made a mistake somewhere along the line. So I think we need to be patient. I think that forensics will bring us many, many answers. Until we hear more from law enforcement, I hope and pray that the families will find solace in each other and will stay strong until justice is brought to this vile person who did this. Okay, so thank you for sharing your time with me. I'll see you back here next week. So until we meet again on the next video, please take care of yourselves and each other and be safe out there. Bye.